Academy gives citizens a shot, an android loses his head, and Charlie Sheen gets down and dirty. All on Rated K. For kids, by kids.
This video is brought to you by Patreon. Patreon! 2 thumbs up. By 1986, Nickelodeon had pretty thoroughly rebranded themselves from an educational channel to an exclusive club for kids, focusing more on content that was fun and entertaining versus content that was good for you. Animation, comedies, and trendy programming were taking precedent. But if you actually looked at Nickelodeon at this time, you'd be surprised at how few actual kids were present on the screen. In terms of original programming, there were no kids on Out of Control or Standby Lights Camera Action. Adults had equal, if not more, screen time as kids on Turkey television. Mr. Wizard's World was about kids being taught science by a really old guy, and even Pinwheel only had puppet children. There were a few shows in service to kids. Kids' Rights had performers acting out stories sent in by children, and Nick Rocks would play music videos based on your letters. But even here, it's adult performers and presenters. Of course, the major exception to this was You Can't Do That on Television, a children's sketch comedy show with dozens of young performers. It really should have clicked with Nickelodeon sooner that this was what the young viewers wanted, that seeing people like themselves running their own TV show was engaging in a way that their other content was not. This is why You Can't Do That on Television was the channel's #1 program for years. However, while Nickelodeon would co-produce the show after a few seasons, it was never really theirs. Occasionally they could get the You Can't kids to do promotions for the channel, including an appearance on the White House lawn of all places. But there was always the chance of Roger Price taking his ball and going home. Perhaps it was time for Nickelodeon to start cultivating their own cast of young performers, kids to star in the channel's original programming and promotions. This would prove to be a key element in the channel's success going into the 90s, but Nick's first stab at it came on November 1st, 1986, with a movie review show called Rated K, for kids, by kids.
Tired of waiting for grown-ups to take you to the movies? Isn't it about time you get kids' views on the latest movies and home videos? Isn't it about time you see interviews with your favorite stars? It's about time for Rated K, for kids, by kids, on weekends at 4, 3 Central, on Nickelodeon. It's about time.
The concept is as simple as can be. Airing on the weekends, Rated K features 3 hosts rotating in from an initial cast of 4 young adults: Matt Nespole, Lakmini Bezbroda, Mark Shanahan, and Rebecca Schwager. Over the next half hour, these kids would give their opinions on what's new in movie theaters and occasionally what's new on videotape. Each review is capped with a letter grade that is entirely made up by the hosts and inconsistent per review, with the exception being Rated K, the ultimate 5-star must-see score of the show.
For American Tail, Lakmini gave it a C for classic, Mark gave it an A for amazing, and I gave it a T for terrific.
As for Clockwise, Matt gave it an S for so-so, and I gave it a C for crazy.
And for True Stories, I gave it an S for see it, Matt gave it a C for confusing, and Mark gave it a G for go. Figure it out yourself.
Each review is introed with a scripted segment summarizing the film, playing clips and the odd interview segment from time to time, but the review itself is completely improvised by the hosts, with active discussions between them usually resulting in playful teasing and ribbing.
And Mark, as for you, I give you an A.
All right, I appreciate it.
For average.
Yeah, well, I give you a G for the generic reviewer.
God,
What do you give Mark, Lakmini?
Don't play favorites like me.
okay, I give you both an N for nice try.
And that's it, really. A few other kids were added to the host rotation over time, but for that first year and change, Rated K's format remained simple and consistent. So, does it work? Not really. There are two fundamental problems when it comes to a kids' film review show: the kids and the films. Let's start with the latter. The target demographic for the show is young teenagers. That's the age of the hosts and the perspective that they bring. This limits the kind of films you can feature, mostly G and PG rated programming, occasionally PG-13, and only R-rated films if they were deemed somehow relevant to the young audience. For example, the kids talk about Stand By Me, a film about 4 young boys going on an adventure, starring some of the best rising young talent in Hollywood today. And you know, if you squint, it kind of looks like The Goonies. Corey Feldman's even in it. They talk about Goofy in one scene. We can have our host talk about that.
Mickey's a mouse, Donald's a duck, Pluto's a dog. What's Goofy? Guys, I'm really confused. What is Goofy?
Goofy is a dog.
No, he's not.
Pluto's a dog.
He's not a dog.
Goofy
Right,
is a
Pluto's a
dog.
dog.
They're both
Goofy, you're
dogs.
wrong.
Of course, they don't bring up the cussing, or River Phoenix smoking, or Will Wheaton getting a leech on his penis, or the stuff that makes it an R-rated movie. And that's fine. Stand By Me is a great film, and while I don't think a 12-year-old is entirely going to get its themes, most can take what it dishes out. However, this was an exception. Most R-rated films weren't even considered for the show. But you don't always get enough child-appropriate films every week to fill a half-hour review show, so sometimes you have the Rated K kids talking about movies that aren't R-rated but have virtually no appeal to the youth. Sure, your kid could go see Jack Lemmon and Julie Andrews in That's Life, but I'm not sure how much crossover audience there is between a drama about a man's anxiety over turning 60 and Danger Mouse.
Don't be intimidated or put off because the characters are middle-aged. It actually has a lot to offer.
It's true. They are a bunch of old fogies, but it's still a great movie anyway. It's hard to get into in the beginning because the characters were so much older than us. But I still really liked it because of the message that the movie gave. It said to live each day to its full because we're not around for forever, and we have to appreciate things while they still happen.
Sometimes a lack of appropriate movies meant digging into the VHS vaults. Well, we don't have a lot of movies to talk about this week. How about we spend most of the episode talking about half a dozen Alfred Hitchcock movies on video?
Okay, Mark. I know you're chomping at the bit to tell everyone what you thought about this movie, so let's hear it.
All right. The Man Who Knew Too Much is one of those reasons why Hitchcock makes great movies, okay? There are these things. First of all, it's a really big adventure, and Jimmy Stewart is the coolest guy ever to hit the screen, okay? And it's one of those things where in every corner you think something's going to come out, and not only something doesn't always happen, and it really keeps you on the edge of your seat, and you're going, what's going to happen? You think someone's going to come out of nowhere. And it's one of those things that really makes you, the suspense build through this whole movie to a great ending and a fantastic movie.
That's kind of cool, right? Introducing young viewers to Alfred Hitchcock through a young person's perspective. But that brings us to Rated K's other conceptual problem, the young film reviewers. As many as 2,000 teenagers auditioned for the 4 spots, with the aim on finding genuine, everyday kids. The criteria for selecting hosts, says executive producer Jeffrey Darby, were weighted towards merely liking to go to the movies and away from youngsters with a particular knowledge of film or stage kids from agents. So basically, they didn't want kids who were professionals in front of the camera or kids who were film hobbyists. They wanted your average kid on the street in an attempt to make Rated K a genuine experience. This isn't some show made by phonies. These are real kids, just like you, with opinions just like yours. The problem is that your average 13-year-old is a really bad film critic. I certainly was at that age, as I hadn't quite developed the understanding of what makes a good movie versus a bad movie, and I certainly hadn't developed the vocabulary to communicate my opinions in a way that's clear and engaging, and certainly not in a way that would make for good television. The Rated K kids seem to prioritize 2 things: whether the movies are predictable, however they qualify that, or how the actors looked in their wardrobes.
Robert Downey, who always looks good, looked horrible. Molly Ringwald, who I love, looked disgusting. Her hair was all over the place. Her clothes were cool, though, but it didn't make the movie. Her part was annoying, and it just dragged on. And I think that if you haven't seen this movie yet, then you should wait until it comes out on home video.
Now, if you had kids on this show who are actually interested in how movies work, or film history, or anything like that, you could have them making a case for a film that would add an element of learning to the proceedings. Having an adult tell kids why they should watch Alfred Hitchcock is probably too much of a disengage. It brings us back to the green vegetable Nickelodeon. But even if one of the rated K kids likes Alfred Hitchcock, they can't really articulate why. If you had a kid who knows what they're talking about making a case for Alfred Hitchcock, explain why he's so influential and why his films affect us as they do, then you might be opening the Hitchcock door to a whole new generation of young people.
First of all, I hate birds, and these little guys were like coming through and attacking everyone, and it just made me really nervous, and I didn't like them. And then the ending was, I was really disappointed because it seemed totally without hope. It's kind of depressing, and that's the way the movie made me feel, kind of depressed. So I didn't really like it that much. I hate to say it, but I did.
Having young hosts who just can't express complex thoughts about art also becomes a detriment when you have films that are, well, more socially complicated than your average blockbuster. Song of the South was re-released in theaters in 1986, and of course 2 young white teenagers aren't going to comment on the film's issues with race and historical revisionism, a reputation that had followed the film for its entire history. At least one of them correctly identifies Song of the South as just being the most boring Disney film ever.
You guys, your mom is gonna love this movie. You're gonna hate it. I mean, it's so boring. That same thing that Matt says is so cute. It just gets on my nerves. It's so old-fashioned. I think there's so many better Walt Disney movies. Go see 101 Dalmatians or something, but this one is just too old, too boring. The plot didn't even move. The characters drove me crazy, and so did the music. Don't see this movie. All in all, I'd say it has too much zippity-doo-dah and not enough zing.
Hey, ever wanted to see pimple-faced toddlers speak positively of 1986's #1 blackface comedy Soul Man?
Guys, I like this movie a lot. I like everything about it. I love sitting there eating my popcorn and watching this. I like C. Thomas Howell's character as Mark. He was really interesting the way he changed his attitude towards people when he became black. I like the funny parts in it, which were really nice. There was like 6 or 7 or even 8 funny parts, which made it a lot of fun to watch. I also liked everything about the movie. There wasn't anything I didn't like about it.
And then there's just the matter of presentation skill. Nickelodeon didn't want show business kids. They wanted something genuine, going so far as to let the host improvise their own reviews. Meaning you get these kids stuttering over their lines, pausing, repeating themselves, and talking over each other. It's a mess.
I think your problem was, though, you found all those little subplots, while they were funny, you thought that they were too confusing.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I thought that's what really made it funny, though. I thought that all those crazy ladies running around, I was like, what's going on here? But I thought that was really funny. That was a funny part of the movie.
I didn't think, I don't know, it's just too confusing, you know what I mean, to get those subplots. I just like the idea of the subplots. They were confusing. The whole thing was confusing.
Yeah, but that's what I thought made it funny, though.
Yeah. The rated K kids aren't completely devoid of charisma. Lakmini Bezbroda in particular has some good screen presence, but the ultimate aesthetic for the show are friends chatting about movies during their lunch period. It is an attempt at something authentic, but it's also something you can get by chatting with your friends about movies during your lunch period. You don't need a cable subscription for that, and your friends' tastes are probably more in line with your own tastes. All of which comes to a head when, for some reason, they decided to bring Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel onto the show.
And today is like the most incredible show yet, because we have the big daddies of movie reviews, the kings of movie reviews, Siskel and Ebert on our show. This is terrific. Yeah, this is great.
And you know, before we started, I was just wondering, since we've never had any adults on the show, what should we call you? Like Mr. Siskel and Mr. Ebert?
Mr. Siskel, sir.
Mr. Siskel, sir? Okay, I'll call you sir.
You can just call me Roger. That'll be just fine. Gene.
You got that first name.
Okay.
I mean, I get it. Siskel and Ebert are the Van Halen of film criticism, but having them on Rated K just shows how under-equipped these kids are to be discussing movies in any serious manner. How are these sophomores expected to stand toe-to-toe with 2 men in their 40s with decades of film criticism experience? Siskel and Ebert are nice to the kids, I guess, but you can really feel their mental eye-rolling at what these children are saying, especially from Roger Ebert.
I thought she was a terrific actress. Her name is Ann Magnuson. She was pert, she was smart, she was spiffy. She looked like kind of a young Susan Hayward, an actress who made movies many years ago.
Well, I couldn't tell because I was looking at her hair color the whole time.
Well, why weren't you looking at her face?
Well,
what are you, a hairdresser or a movie critic?
No, well, you know, I'd sit there and I'd watch it, and I couldn't tell whether she was doing a good job or not because I'd be going, ooh, look at that hair.
Well, I think that, you know, actually you should probably have broadened out your scope a little bit and looked a little bit more at the rest of her.
Okay, look at...
And I mean, like, he uses an umbrella to kill some Chinese guy, and this was just the most amazing thing I ever saw. And his eyes are so sick. He, like, walks around handing out pineapples to little kids with these great eyes, you know? And, like, if you're really in an abusive, violent mood and you want to go for a good time with your friends, this is it, I'm telling you.
Now, that expression is flat.
Matt, I want to ask you this question. Have you ever in your travels encountered the word hyperbole?
Fatality.
Sometimes I worry that I come at these shows from too much of an adult perspective. Like, I'm in my 30s and my favorite movie is F for Fake. Of course, I'm not going to get anything out of Rated K. But I can't imagine the show's target audience getting a lot out of it either. Most young adults already know what they like, so they already know if they're going to see David Byrne's true stories or not. This surface-level discussion from the host isn't going to change anyone's minds on the matter. If anything, the movie clips would have more impact than any of the Rated K kids' opinions. So yeah, Rated K had shallow film criticism, awkward presentation, and was at the whims of Hollywood's schedule. But I think that's all beside the point. The point is the other part of the title. For kids, by kids. Rated K is a show that looks and feels like it was built from the ground up by young adults, just like you, without a single adult dictating what they say. There's no sense of a producer telling them, okay, 20th Century Fox gave us a nice paycheck, so you have to be nice to the pickup artist with Robert Downey Jr. and Molly Ringwald. Rated K is pretty lousy television, but it's genuine television in a way that no Nickelodeon original had pulled off before. The phrase, for kids, by kids, would become something of an unofficial slogan for the network, a brand ethos that would help define its path out of the 80s and into the hyper-successful 90s. Put kids in front of the camera, make it seem like they're running the show. You Can't Do That on Television did that first, but Rated K was the first time Nickelodeon took their own stab at it, and the first time they cultivated their own exclusive band of young people to do promotions and expand the channel's activities. For example, what if we did a big national poll where we asked kids what the best movie stars, musical acts, and television shows of the year were? How do we promote it? Who do we get to present it? Oh look, it's the Rated K kids. They'll do it. Which brings us to the Big Ballot.
For years, adults have had their award shows to pick their favorite movies, their favorite records, and their favorite athletes.
Now it's kids' turn to pick their favorites as Nickelodeon announces Big Ballot, the first nationwide poll just for kids.
Big Ballot is where you pick your #1 movie, your hit record, and your favorite athlete.
So tune in to Nickelodeon after January 18th for the big news on how to cast your vote and when to see the winners on the Big Ballot show.
Nickelodeon's Big Ballot, a big idea whose time has come. Brought to you by Bonkers Chewy Candy and Post Cereals.
This is a great idea, Big Ballot, you know, because this is the first time that kids got to vote for something. I mean, every kid in the United States could vote if they wanted to.
Definitely.
And the nominees thought it was a great idea too.
Big Ballot is special because it's a whole other segment of the population being represented.
You know, you've got the Academy Awards and the Emmys and the Golden Globes and all that kind of stuff, and adults are the ones who, no offense, but, you know, the adults are the only people that get to vote for these things. And I've always wanted to, you know, vote for my favorite actor. And half the time, you know, the person that wins is not the person who I think should win, and my friends feel the same way.
It means more to me than anybody's Emmy, anybody's Grammy, Tony, whatever.
I think it's about time kids got the right to vote.
The Big Ballot was a countrywide mail-in poll announced in January of 1987, with the winners presented over 4 episodes of Rated K beginning on March 28th. How it worked was that young people, ages 17 or younger, would get a paper ballot from over 1,000 participating businesses, including Toys R Us, Musicland, Herman's World of Sporting Goods, and Hard Rock Cafe. The ballots had 12 categories spanning movies, television, music, and sports, with 3 nominees per category as selected by Nickelodeon. You check off who you think should win in the category, put the ballot in an envelope, and mail it to Nickelodeon by the end of February. Before we continue, I have pointed out many Wikipedia inaccuracies while doing Nick Knacks, but the wiki page on the Big Ballot has to be the most garbage nonsense I've ever come across. Virtually everything here is wrong, so I'm going to be spending a decent amount of time setting the record straight, starting with the nominees and winners of each category. As I said before, each category only had 3 nominees, while the Wikipedia page lists 5. Through press releases, we know that in the category of favorite movie, we have Crocodile Dundee, The Karate Kid Part 2, and Top Gun. Favorite movie actor, Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks, and Eddie Murphy. Favorite movie actress, Whoopi Goldberg, Goldie Hawn, and Ali Sheedy. Next, the television categories. Favorite television show, Moonlighting, The Cosby Show, and Family Ties. Favorite television actor: Kirk Cameron, Bill Cosby, and Michael J. Fox. Favorite television actress: Tempest Bledsoe, Kim Fields, and Kaisha Knight Pulliam. Now the music categories. Favorite music group: The Jets, Huey Lewis and the News, and the Monkees. Favorite male vocalist: Phil Collins, Lionel Richie, and Bruce Springsteen. Favorite female vocalists: Whitney Houston, Janet Jackson, and Madonna. And finally, sports. Favorite sports team: the Chicago Bears, the Los Angeles Lakers, or the New York Mets. Favorite male athlete: Michael Jordan, Jim McMahon, and Darryl Strawberry. And finally, favorite female athlete: Valerie Briscoe Hooks, Chris Everett Lord, and Debbie Thomas. Unfortunately, while I have a complete list of nominees, I've only managed a partial list of winners. The Los Angeles Times actually spoiled the results of the movie categories episode before it aired, revealing the winners as The Karate Kid Part 2, Eddie Murphy, and Whoopi Goldberg. I have the television category episode in my possession, where the winners are Kim Fields, Bill Cosby, and The Cosby Show, the only winner the Wikipedia page got right. I also dug up some clips of the Monkees and Madonna accepting awards in their respective categories, but I don't know the results of favorite male vocalist or any of the sports categories.
I just want to say thanks to the kids of America for giving me this very special award. It's really great in here.
The award given was a very clumsy-looking golden kaleidoscope, which looked awkward to hold and most certainly wouldn't fit easy into anyone's awards case. And these awards were not given in any kind of ceremony, just given to the winner whenever they could catch them for an interview. The Academy Awards this is not. Which brings us to what most people mention when they bring up the Big Ballot, that it's actually the first Nickelodeon's Kids' Choice Award. Is it, though? Kinda? I mean, the influence is obvious. The Big Ballot worked well enough to expand on the concept of a youth-based polling event/award show, and they would carry over the Kaleidoscope Award over to the first proper Kids' Choice Awards, before it'd be replaced with the much more familiar Blimp Award. But Nickelodeon has never officially declared the Big Ballot as the first Kids' Choice, or Kids' Choice Episode 0, or anything like that. The two events are connected, but boldly declaring it as the first Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards, as the Wikipedia page does, is a step too far. The actual format of the two events are certainly night and day. The Big Ballot was split over 4 episodes of Rated K, meaning it took a whole month to present all the awards. Also, Rated K didn't stop doing movie reviews at this time. They would front-load the episode with reviews, then hit a button that would switch things over to the Big Ballot mode.
Wow! Whoa!
Each nominee was given a profile segment which lasted a minute or two each. Then the winner would give a brief speech, assuming they were available to accept the award, or even cared about the event. Bill Cosby wasn't around to accept his, for example. Each episode was the standard half hour with commercials, so with the reviews and profiles and awards, each of these episodes were packed wall to wall, which wouldn't leave any time for skits, musical numbers, or any of the celebratory stuff that would come to define the Kids' Choice Awards. There certainly wouldn't have been any time for, say, Cyndi Lauper to be inducted into a Nickelodeon Hall of Fame, or the young hosts getting slime, as recounted by the Wikipedia article. Not having all 4 episodes in my possession, I can't definitively disprove the existence of these moments, but neither can the article properly source them. Let's see, what else is wrong here? The Big Ballot was not filmed at Universal Studios Hollywood. It was filmed at the normal Rated K set in New York. The first actual Kids' Choice Awards would be filmed at Universal Studios Hollywood, so that's probably where the confusion comes from. The format does not resemble the worst of You Can't Do That on Television clip show, not even a little bit. I don't know where that came from. It was sponsored by Post Cereal and Bonkers Fruit Chews, though.
Bonkers. Bonks you out.
Now, if the results of the Big Ballot were genuine or secretly picked by Nickelodeon, that's between Jerry Laybourne and God, but who won the Big Ballot wasn't really the point, in the same way that movie reviews wasn't really the point of Rated K. The for kids by kids mantra was pretty succinctly demonstrated during the Big Ballot as well, taking the mail-in influence of actual real-life cable-watching children and having the results presented by actual children. Rated K presented the fantasy of running your own television show, while the Big Ballot presented the fantasy of running your own Academy Awards. As 1987 progressed into 1988, however, Rated K's role in the channel dramatically shifted. 1986 would see the final episode of Livewire, Nickelodeon's music and celebrity interview talk show, and 1987 would be the final year for Standby Lights Camera Action, Nickelodeon's movie behind-the-scenes show, leaving Rated K as the channel's primary modern multimedia program, which means the show would have to take up more roles than just film reviews, and for that the place would need to be cleaned up a bit. The original Rated K kids were out. The original 4 were already aging out of the role, and it was decided that these improvising real kids would be replaced with more show business children that the program originally avoided. The sets were completely redone, and the product became more scripted. There's an actual writer in the credits now.
Look what the cat dragged in. While you've been off playing video games, I've been slaving away doing the work for both of us. What do you have to say for yourself? Well, it's your turn to introduce the next segment.
Here's Robin and Joel with some new movies coming out on video.
Rated K still did movie reviews, but also now did more extensive behind-the-scenes features and started spotlighting other children's media, including video games and even theme park attractions, sometimes getting age-appropriate celebrities to do on-the-scene reporting. For example, here's Will Wheaton talking about the Star Trek Adventure attraction at Universal Studios Hollywood.
All right, this is the latest from Klingon this year.
Over to that table.
This is used predominantly for different things, carousing, boarding other starships, Romulan ale chugging.
Basically, Rated K pivoted from being a child's At the Movies with Siskel and Ebert to being a child's Entertainment Tonight. Each kid was given a designated role. For example, there were only 2 film reviewers this time, Robin Griggs and Joel Savani. Just to show off the difference between the first batch of kids and this batch, 15-year-old Robin Griggs had been acting on the stage since the age of 3, did commercials, and had even worked for Nickelodeon before in 1986 on a pilot for a kids sitcom called Double Take that hadn't been picked up. Segmenting the show like this allowed for younger kids to be on screen. Since the film reviews included PG-13 movies, the film reviewers needed to be older to keep up appearances that Nickelodeon is responsible with their kids. But for things like the video game stuff, sure, give us 10-year-olds. The priority in picking these kids was no longer seeming genuine, but having good camera presence. We looked at a couple hundred kids trying to find the 2 hosts for the show. They had to be over 13 since we review PG-13 films, but the main issue was how they come off on camera, how they organize their thoughts and make it interesting. We didn't want heavy film criticism. We wanted someone kids could identify with, the kind of spunkiness that appeals to the 11 to 15 age group. 8 to 10-year-olds think 15 is over the hill. Unfortunately, I only have half an episode of this latter version of Rated K, so I can't make a fully accurate quality comparison. It definitely has a different feel. The added polish and scripting makes it feel more like a television show in big capital letters. I certainly don't miss the stuttering and talking over each other, but the trade-off to a more waxy show business veneer is noticeable. While the Big Ballot happened only once, one of the Rated K 2.0 kids, Brad Kane, did make an appearance on the actual first Kids' Choice Awards in 1988.
Hey, speaking of not on the ballot, why was my name not mentioned yet? For Best Update Host, the nominees are Brad Kane, and Brad Kane. And the winner is... Wait, don't you want to know who the winner is? Hey, come back! Then stop calling me, okay? Last time I helped you.
For whatever reason, Rated K 2.0 didn't stick. The show's final broadcast was on December 18th, 1988, and Nickelodeon wouldn't really air a program like that again. There was talk of retooling the show, Rated K 3.0, though I'm not sure what they would have changed. But by that time, Nickelodeon was making a slow pivot towards moving from New York City to new studio space in Orlando, Florida, a move that would be finalized in 1990, significantly increasing their production of original programming. Rated K was cheap and could be produced quickly, but at some point Nickelodeon decided that instead of talking about other people's media, they would make their own media. They would make their own blockbuster media, and the need for shows like Rated K diminished. You know, come to Nickelodeon to watch Nickelodeon. Don't come to Nickelodeon to be told what to watch elsewhere. Rated K, for kids by kids, was a declaration of Nickelodeon's intent, a banner to wave as it took steps to make the channel a true just-for-kids space. It was not, however, great television, either too clumsy or too slick, never really finding a happy medium, and it never nailed down a role for itself outside of that slogan. An important show in Nickelodeon's history, especially for the Big Ballot, but kind of a chore to actually, watch. Nevertheless, for kids by kids are words to live by, and darn it, Nickelodeon would live by them.
Nick, 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 Nickelodeon. Nick, 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 Nickelodeon.
Next time, for the summer of 1986, Nickelodeon would bring some of their Nick at Night programming into the daytime hours, meaning I am obligated to talk about these shows. First up, the trials and tribulations of the 50s housewife. Today's shoutout goes to Ken Reid, comedian, podcaster, and pop culture man, who was very generous in lending me his entire Nickelodeon tape library, from which the majority of the Rated K footage here stems from. Before Ken, I had half an episode. After Ken, I have like 12. So it's only fair I plug his podcast, TV Guidance Counselor, where Ken brings in all sorts of fun people from show business and have them read old back issues of TV Guide. Each episode is a crash course in retro television. I've been jumping around episodes for a while now. It's a blast. Link in the description below. Thank y'all for watching. If you'd like to support Nick Knacks and other Pop Arena projects, consider contributing to my Patreon. Every dollar goes to research materials, production values, and feeding my dark needs. You can also support Nick Knacks by liking the video, leaving a comment, subscribing to the channel, hitting that bell icon for notifications, following me on Twitter, sending a one-time donation through Ko-fi or PayPal, and sharing Nick Knacks with all your friends. Engagement for the algorithm. I'll see you next time.